So there's a new podcast. Make sure you subscribe because then you'll see them right as they come out, which is important. So sorry, I'm a little bit warm. My cat was being a jerk and wanted to eat, so that's why I'm a little late as well. We have 8 podcasts that I've already recorded. I just wanted to kind of share like a preview of what those are as they come out. Obviously, I go into a lot more detail in each of them because they're longer than, I'm trying to fit 8 episodes into one, live video right now. So the first episode is all about me and my practice. So I go into my background. I share my story leading up to deciding to start practicing witchcraft, and then I share about my witchcraft practice. So I don't talk about everything. There's some things that'll continue to come out, but kind of my main beliefs, my main practice, things I do on a daily basis and stuff like that. So you'll hear that in the very first episode is everything leading up to when I decided I was a witch and then how I practice now. So that's the very first episode. And then the second episode is going to be it's already recorded, is more focused on you and your practice. So it's an invitation to set your intention for your witchcraft practice. And you can do this at any point. So whether you've been practicing for a long time, 20 years or more, or you're just starting out this week, setting your intention is always good, especially to give yourself some focus. So, this is just like a good opportunity to reflect on what you believe in and how witchcraft can help you in your life. And so I do this every year actually to go through and see how things have changed for me and see if I want to shift because of things that I've learned. So maybe my belief systems change frequently because I learn new things or I experience new things in my spiritual practice and my witchcraft practice. So things change and shift, and I think that's okay. And I think it's important to document that and to pay attention to that. So that's what the second episode is about, is that invitation for you to reflect on your beliefs and what you want to accomplish through practicing witchcraft. Like, why are we even doing this? And then also in that episode is about how to learn, because I think that that's important as well. As there's so many resources out there, and I try my hardest to be very accurate. But there's my experience could be different from what you've experienced. So I think it's important to take what you learn from me or from anyone else that you're reading and see how it actually applies to your own spiritual practice. So that's kind of part of it, is the learning aspect. And then there's this piece of remembering and forgetting, which is that, we learn all these things and sometimes we forget them. So it's okay to revisit things. So maybe you read a book on tarot and then you learn something in that, but over time you forget it. It's okay to go and read the same book again. It's okay to revisit a podcast episode again. It's okay to read another blog post again, because we're always constantly remembering and forgetting. And if it's important to your practice, then it's important to revisit it and to relearn. And you never know what you're going to get out of it the next time. Like the first time you learn something, you get what you need in that moment. And then when you review that, you're going to get something different out of it because of how you've changed in between. So that's that second episode is that. And again, I go into it a lot more in the episode so that you can, so I hope that you listen to it and you learn from it. So then we have episode 3, which is really where I go into my understanding of how magic and witchcraft works. So again, this is all from my own experience, from what I understand of the subtle flow of energy, how the universal energy flows. And so it's important to listen to this and see how it applies to your own understanding. I talk about the Hermetic principles of magic because those are really important to my understanding. But, I've heard some people that those don't resonate with them. And so that's okay. You can take those ideas, those theories, and see how they fit into what you understand of the universe. I think that's like the most key thing that I want you to get out of this podcast or anything that you learn from me, is that what someone tells you does not have to be what you believe. You can take what you've learned from someone and you can fit it into what you understand. So I talk about that, what is the Hermetic principles of magic, and I also talk about the idea of thought forms and how magic is really a thought form. So thought form is a belief, basically. When we think about something over and over again, that belief takes shape, or that thought takes shape, and that's a thought form. So this idea comes from Tibetan mysticism. But basically, magic is a thought form because when we repeat certain rituals and spells, we are creating form in that process. So listen to that episode and I explain it a lot more thoroughly and hopefully it makes more sense. But yeah, I go into that with the magic is a thought form and the Hermetic principles. I think that's all I talked about in that one, but you'll see, maybe there's a surprise. And then we have episode 4, which is where I talk about the tools and the materials involved in witchcraft. And the most important thing I think from that episode is that you are the magic, like you are the person who can control the energy and you get to manipulate it in the way that suits your desires. And so we use tools and materials. They are important to witchcraft. I think that they're important aspects of it. They're not where the magic is, though. So they have magical properties because of your belief in their associations. So I kind of talk about that it goes into a certain Hermetic principle of the principle of correspondence, where we have the spiritual realm and the physical realm, and then we have the mental realm, which is kind of this bridge between those two, the spiritual and the physical. And so what magic is calling on a correspondence in the spiritual realm, and with witchcraft we are using tools and materials in the physical realm to represent those spiritual realm energies, spirits, deities, etc. So that's where the witchcraft happens, is with those physical tools and materials that we use to represent a spiritual energy. And then the mental realm is your thoughts, is your belief, and that's how it connects those two things. So I go into that and how those tools are really important. So that's episode 4, is about the tools and the materials. And the difference between a tool and a material is that the tool is like the vessel of the spell, so it's things like jars, and if you use like a ritual knife or your broom or your cauldron, these are things that create the spell, whereas the materials, they're the representative of the spirit realm energy, whereas the tools are kind of like the vessel that contains those materials. But I talk about that as well in the episode, so you'll hear it. And then in episode 5, I talk more about the energy work. So I start out with talking a little bit about the chakra system, which is something that I believe and has really helped me in my practice. And so there's the chakra system, and then I talk a little bit about the aura as well, which is your energy field, and how the energy field of the aura filters energy into the physical body, and then the chakra system moves that energy around. And then I also talk about 3 energy work practices: grounding, centering, and shielding, which I think are super important as daily practices for a witch. But that's, again, always coming from my experience, just a recommendation. Of course, you might have other things that feel more important to your daily practice. So that's episode 5. Grounding, I'll just go quickly what these things are. Grounding is where you're recycling your energy into the earth, and that energy is kind of like anything that isn't helpful to you, it's recycled into the earth, and then you can take it back in as like new, fresh energy. And so that just helps you to be grounded, to be connected to your physical body rather than like up in the air and in the clouds. And then centering is where you pull all of your energy in. So throughout the day, whatever you do during your day, whether it's magical or mundane, your energy is kind of scattered, and centering just pulls it all back in and helps you to really understand your own energy. And then shielding is where you protect your energy, so you create like a bubble around yourself that is protective and keeps you from harm. So those are episode 5, and then episode 6 I go into 4 additional practices in witchcraft. So I talk about let's see, I talk about meditation, which is really important because, if we go back to that idea of your mental realm, creating that bridge between the spiritual and physical world, meditation is what helps you focus on your thoughts, on your beliefs, and to focus them onto what you actually want. So meditation gives you this like space of silence that gets rid of all the clutter, like of your daily life, your to-do list, your work, any routines or anything like that. So meditation just gives you that chance to take a step away from all of that and reflect on what you really want to be focused on. And I also talk about visualization, which is the practice of visualizing or imagining the desire that you have, so what you want to create in your life. And so visualization is not really the best word because it really involves all of your senses. It's not just visual, it's the way it sounds, the way it tastes, the way it feels, like physically, tangibly, but also the way it feels emotionally, the way, all your other senses, the way it smells. Is that all of them? I think that's all of them. So all 5 of your senses and then your emotions as well. So visualization is really a combination of like experiencing, being, having, doing, feeling the way that you would do, be, feel, have in the reality that you want to create. So that's visualization. There's 2 other ones that I can't remember what I talk about now. Anyway, there's 2 more, and that's episode 6. Well, anyway, I'll let it load and then I'll come back to it. So, and then in episode 7, I talk about the process of casting a spell. So some of it is repeated from previous episodes because all of it goes together in order to build up into what witchcraft is about, is actually casting spells and using our tools and crafting our spells. So there's 6 steps that I've kind of narrowed it down to for my own practice of how to cast a spell. And so I walk through each of those. And so it starts with really getting to the heart of what you actually want. I think sometimes we think we know what we want. We think, I need money, so I have to get a job. But that's not the only way to have money come to you, is through a job. So if you cast a spell to get a new job, that might not actually solve the problem of getting money. So really what you need is more money. And so getting to the heart of it and not limiting yourself by making, like, the job is not the only avenue. So you're limiting yourself by casting a spell for getting a job when you could be casting your spell for any option of money coming your way. So that's just an example, but so that's the first step, is to get to the heart of your need. And then the second step is to figure out those correspondences that I was talking about earlier. So we have the correspondences are what resides or lives in the spirit realm. So it all depends on your belief system. I often talk about the universe as like my overarching higher power. But, if some people don't believe in that word specifically, maybe you're a Christian witch and you believe in one God, or maybe you follow a specific pantheon of deities and you work with a specific god or goddess. Maybe you're more of like a Wiccan following practice where it's a god and a goddess, so the balance there. Or, some people believe in like abstract concepts like love is the higher power, or truth is the higher power, or justice, or any of these sort of abstract ideas. All of that lives in the spirit realm, whatever you believe in. And so you figure out what you're calling on in the spirit realm based on your heart of your matter. So if your heart of the matter, if we use magic as an example, we would be calling on a spirit realm deity, spirit energy that involves money. And it might even be money. Like I recently read a book about money being a type of spirit. So anyway, so you get your correspondence and then you get your materials. And your materials are chosen based on your heart of the matter and your correspondences, things that are associated with that. So for money, you might choose like basil as a reflection of money or something like that. Or you might choose, if you're choosing a god or goddess that's rules over money, then you would choose a material like a crystal or an herb that is associated with that deity. So you kind of do what feels right to you, but you just pick out your materials based on your correspondences in the heart of your matter. And then you choose your tools, and that will be determined based on the spell you're doing. So if you want to do a jar spell, then the tools you need will involve a jar to collect all your materials. And then if you need anything else, like a wand or a broom for cleansing your space or anything like that, you'll choose all of your tools that you need. And then you'll choose your timing. So the timing will also depend on your correspondence and your heart of the matter, because the timing could be based on the moon phase. And if you're trying to draw money in, then you might choose a moon phase that's during the waxing moon. Or you might choose to cast a spell on Thursday, which is ruled by Jupiter. So that's kind of the idea, is to just pick them based on where you were earlier in the spell writing process. And then finally, you're going to actually write the words. And that's going to be based on everything you've chosen up to that point. So if you've chosen to use basil, then you might say something like, this basil, or I call on the spirit of this basil to draw money to me, or something like that. You're bringing in the material that you've chosen. You can bring in the deity. You can say, Jupiter, please help me in my plea. Send more money on its way to me, or something like that. So that was just a rough little rhyme, but something like that. You'll actually write the words. So yeah, that's writing your spells. So that's episode 7. That one's a little bit longer because that's sort of more in depth than the others, but that's okay. Sure, you won't mind. And then the final episode that I've previously recorded is about being a solitary witch. So many, many modern witches are solitary witches, and that just means that they don't practice with a coven or with a group of other witches. So they don't meet regularly, they don't do their rituals together, they do them on their own. That's all it means to be solitary. And so since it's so common, and since I'm a solitary witch, I felt like that would be a good thing to talk about, is just some tips for being solitary, because even if you do work on your own, I still think it's important to have some sort of community. So I talk about finding communities. This is a community, so this is a perfect place to ask for support and advice about what you're doing. The main Mumbles and Things group would be a good option as well. And then I talk about how to keep skepticism in your practice in that episode, paying attention to what your sources are, what is their intention of writing this thing. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of good people who practice and teach witchcraft, but there's also people who are trying to get something out of you. It's easy for cult leaders to take advantage of people who are, and just like you get sucked in. It's easy for people to gaslight you. It's easy for all of this stuff to happen. So I just talk about how to keep yourself safe, how to trust or find trustworthy sources, and it's another one about how to learn, basically, and how to take notes and how to reflect on what you're learning and things like that. So it's really just about being solitary and how to keep up with your practice when you don't have a set schedule. All right, so those are all the episodes that I have recorded so far. I have cleansing. Duh, that's a super important aspect of practice. So just going back to episode 6 that I couldn't remember what I talked about, cleansing was the third thing I talked about. And so it's mostly about cleansing your space. You can also cleanse yourself, and you can cleanse your tools and materials. In this one, I just talk about your space and various physical cleansing exercises and energetic cleansing exercises to keep your spiritual hygiene. And then divination, which is one of my favorite practices. So I find what I talk about in the episode is that divination is how we can experience divine energy without some sort of person in the middle. So I think that there's spiritual teachers who are important. You think about some of the major world religions, there's priests and rabbis and imams, and I think those people are very important for giving us examples of spirituality and religion and how they experience it. Divination gives you the opportunity to become that for yourself as well. So I don't want it to sound like I'm belittling those spiritual leaders and religious teachers, but that's just what divination does. It gives you that opportunity to communicate with the divine. And I talk a little bit about in the episode, but I think people get thrown off by that word divine because of its association with something external like God or an angel or something like that. But with the Hermetic philosophy, the principle of mentalism says that we're all divine. We're all part of the divine, and the divine is everything. So that means that I'm divine and you're divine, and everything that exists in this universe, on this planet, is divine. And we can connect in with sort of the spiritual energy that's outside of our physical bodies through divination. So that's just to get back to episode 6. And that's all of the things that I have done so far. And now this week, as you listen to those episodes, as you get access to them, I'm going to be giving you tasks so that you can help me with this podcast and help it to grow. So you can help me. There's just different things that you can do. You can do whatever you want, whether some things are going to be like sharing to your stories. If you don't use stories, then you don't have to do that. You can share however you want. Simply subscribing is really the best way to help this podcast grow and for it to be successful and for me to want to continue to do it, to continue to share with you all. So yeah, subscribing is probably the best thing that you can do. And then after that, everything else is a bonus. So if you want to share to your stories, I'll be giving instructions for how to do that, screenshotting that you're listening to it, and then also reviewing and leaving a 5-star review if you think I deserve it. So that really helps as well. And so that's what this week is going to be about, is just how you can help me. And then the next week will be our next lesson, our next actual lesson that will become a new podcast episode. And I'll be talking about kitchen witchcraft. And that's just because we are in Cancer season, which if you're part of the Mumbleship, I know a couple of you are here. The Mumbleship is structured around the zodiac seasons. And so the zodiac seasons are the time that the sun spends in each of the zodiac signs. We just entered into Cancer season. And so in Cancer season, it's all about the home and your childhood and the home that you create in adulthood. And so kitchen witchcraft is kind of thought of as like the central part of the home is the kitchen. Family values consider the idea of like having dinner around the table as a family as just a really magical way of connecting with your family. And so we're talking about how to incorporate your magic into your cooking through kitchen magic, and just into everything you do in the kitchen, your altar set up in the kitchen, and anything like that. So I think that that'll be pretty fun to talk about, and that'll be leading into, if you're in the Mumbleship, our masterclass next week is about a more in-depth version of this past episode or this live video. So you can join me for kind of an intro into kitchen magic on Monday, and then if you join the Mumbleship that week, you can also come to the masterclass and you can go into kind of more detail with that. So that's what you can expect for the next week up until next Monday. And then on after that, I'll be kind of asking you all what you want to hear about. I have a few ideas of what I want to talk about, but that's up to for change. I'm totally okay with changing based on what you want to know, so what I can offer you. Well, thank you, everybody. Okay, bye, everybody.